here at Nuweiba, Egypt, and we're standing by this granite pillar that Ron Wyatt found in 1977. When he originally saw it with his two sons, it was down by the beach where he believed was the Red Sea crossing on the Gulf of Aqaba. And he didn't pay much attention to it. It was laying in the surf, and he pointed out to the Israeli soldiers because at that time Israel had control of the Sinai Peninsula. And later he found out that they had erected it right here on the edge of this huge beach that he believed was the real Red Sea crossing. Now in 1984, when he was imprisoned in Saudi Arabia, this pillar actually became really important because when the Saudis took him across the beach from Nuweiba on the Saudi side of the Red Sea crossing, they wanted to verify his story, so they took him by helicopter to from the jail to the beach there. And when they landed, he found a column matching this one, still standing on the Saudi beach, but it had ancient archaic Hebrew writing on it. And this one, there was no writing. In fact, you can see where it's really rough. Maybe this area that was laying in the surf had eroded the writing. But anyways, on the Saudi side, he memorized that archaic Hebrew and later had it translated. And it mentioned Solomon's name, Pharaoh being killed, the land of Mizraim or Egypt, and the land of Edom, which would be over there, and plus the death of the Pharaoh. So the combination of all these words and letters, he believed that this was erected by Solomon or his men, and that this was in commemoration of the Red Sea crossing. As we know, Solomon's port for his ships to go to Africa was up north here by modern-day Aqaba. And so every 2 years, Solomon's ships would come down the Gulf and go all the way to Africa to bring back treasures, and they mentioned even monkeys that they brought back, and gold. And so this pillar could have been erected by Solomon's men to commemorate the Red Sea crossing. Hey friends, we're standing here in kind of the surf of the Red Sea crossing. Now this is one of the proposed sites for the Red Sea, and we're at Nuweiba, which is along the Gulf of Aqaba. Now this area is a big peninsula that sticks out to the Gulf if you look on a map. And this is the area where Ron Wyatt first investigated in the late 1970s to be the Red Sea crossing. Now why did he think it's the Red Sea? Why do others, including myself, think this is the Red Sea crossing? The main thing has to do with the geography. If you look at a map, this is one beach where if you take Wadi Watir, which is a valley, and go inland, you hit the trade route between ancient Egypt and the land of Midian, which is in northwest Saudi Arabia, just over there through the haze. That's Saudi Arabia. And so that ancient trade route, that's where Moses fled 40 years before. And he fled to Jethro's home and lived there with the sheep. And when one day he took the sheep up to the mountain of God and saw the burning bush, that's when God told him, bring the Israelites back. And so he went back on that trade route, back to Egypt, to ask Pharaoh to release the Israelites from slavery. Now, when he did it, obviously we know the story that they had 10 plagues. The firstborn was killed on the 10th plague, and then Pharaoh, the Egyptian, said, you guys go, you're free to go. And so the Israelites were walking on that same ancient trade route to Midian. And then God told them to turn and change direction and camp by the Red Sea. And this is the only spot where you can do that on the trade route, where you change your direction and go towards the coast. There's one route, Wadi Watir, that ends up on this big beach. And you're basically stuck here. Because if you go backward, you would end up back towards where the Egyptian army is at. And they were chasing the Israelites. And so with the Egyptian army behind them, the sea in front of them, and the Israelites surrounded by these big mountains going all the way around the Nuweiba Beach, there was no place for them to go. But God told them to move forward. And I really believe that they actually put their feet into the water. And God told them to step forward. And when they acted on faith and did that, then Moses struck the water and the sea parted. Now, if you look at an underwater topography map, the bathymetric map of this area, it's a gradual slope going down to the middle and then coming back up on the Saudi side. And so this area is a walkable path. Now if you go north or south, the area underwater are underwater sea cliffs. So if God told them at, let's say, Dahab, which is a small little beach, not as big as Nuweiba, but it's a beach. If they went there and God removed the water, right in front of them is an underwater sea cliff. They would have to rappel down. And so this is the only spot that everything fits. Now if you read the books written by the historian Josephus, he mentions the crossing. Now he was 1,500 years after the event, but he does talk about the mountains that surrounded the Israelites and how they were stuck in this wilderness area. And so the traditional Red Sea crossing sites along the Suez Canal, all those lakes, it's all flatland. There's no mountains in that area at all. And so this is the perfect spot for the Israelites to cross. That's why we believe that this is the Red Sea crossing. Okay, one of the things that people like to use as evidence that this is the Red Sea crossing is that they claim that the beach is melted. Because if you remember the story in the Bible, the pillar of fire which was guiding them, which was in the daytime was the pillar of cloud, and at night it was the pillar of fire. Now this huge pillar, which was basically God's presence in front of them, it went between the Israelites and the Egyptians' camp. So between, it kind of formed a divide, a barrier between the armies of Egypt and the Israelite encampment, so that the Egyptians could not come and get the Israelites before the Red Sea crossing. And so this wall of fire that looked like a fire on the Israelite side and the Egyptian side, they claimed that as it moved through the Red Sea crossing, that this pillar or wall of fire melted the sand, and that's what we have here today, that this hardened cement look is the proof that God's fire was here on the beach. If you look at the actual evidence though, sadly it is not the case. Now some people like to use tabloid headlines and clickbait titles to make extraordinary claims, but if you're here on the beach, you'll notice that this is a conglomerate, it's a cement effect, and it's naturally explained. You find this same hardened conglomerate at many locations in the world, in California, up and down the Gulf of Aqaba, and it's not just some perfect path that forms only here to the land of Midian. And so this conglomerate has rocks in it, it has seashells, all of which are not melted, and if you look closely in some locations, they even have modern artifacts embedded in it. Like what we found a year ago in Saudi Arabia. We found a modern tire iron had embedded into the cement, showing that it's continually being formed. And so we were able to yank it out and look at it, and we have photographs and video of it. But again, in fact, here is some seashells. I just noticed they're small, but you can see there's part of a seashell here. This the top part here is white, but here's one right here, the shell. And again, these are not melted. If you look at the heat that required to melt sand, this would not be like this. The seashells will be all melted, the rocks will be melted, the sand would be melted into glass like you see obsidian. This is not, this is just a mixture, you know, it basically looks like cement. And this is a natural type of cement. And there are scientific articles we can show you guys that actually discuss this effect, because you find it worldwide. It's not just, oh, we're just trying to be negative Nancy here and disprove somebody's claim. No, we want people to believe in the truth, and the truth is this is the Red Sea crossing, and the evidence points to it. And Ron was out here diving in this spot, and that's about a quarter mile out, or a half a mile. He was finding, you know, the coral-shaped chariot parts and that one four-spoke, what looks like to be gold chariot wheel. That was out here, but this is not evidence. And so we don't need to add to the story to make this the Red Sea crossing. This is just a natural conglomerate formed by nature. Okay, we're standing just in front of Wadi Watir. Now, a wadi is an Arabic word meaning a dry riverbed or valley. And so during flood season, during the spring rains, water would come down through here, and that's where you actually get the name Watir. It means water. And so flash floods would come through here, and now the Egyptian government has built these flood control measures, but it would flood out into the Gulf of Aqaba, which is behind us there. Now, Wadi Watir is the only ancient way during the time of the Exodus until almost modern times to get to this area by car or by walking. If you have a 1 to 2 million people with their carts and the Egyptian army with their chariots and horses, then this is the only way they could have come through here. Now, if you take the Wadi system, now we can't because of security measures and for whatever reason, but it winds its way through the canyon and it ends up on the central trade route that goes across the Sinai Peninsula from modern-day Suez to the town of Aqaba, on the tip of the Gulf of Aqaba. And so the Israelites would have in ancient times crossed the Sinai Peninsula, which we are on right now, and taken this trade route to the Arabian Peninsula. But before they crossed over and left the Sinai Peninsula, God told Moses that he would make an example out of Pharaoh, and he told him to turn back and camp by the sea. Now, when you're on that trade route, there's only one place you can turn and change direction and get to the sea, and that's Wadi Watir. And you can see it's a big canyon that comes out to the beach here. And we'll take a pause because okay, so the Israelites would have come out of that Wadi system and encamped here on the beach. And now if you look at a satellite image of this area, it's a huge beach, which I think we calculate on Google Earth about 16,000 acres or so, maybe 8,000. Anyways, it was thousands of acres. And so this is the only beach system where you're seeing the mountains. You see you're surrounded by these mountains with one way on and the sea in front of you. And so the only way to leave here is either be captured by the Egyptian army or to go into the sea. And as we know, the Bible says they went into the sea and God performed that great miracle. And on a clear day, you can see Saudi Arabia. Sadly, it looks like it's very hazy. And so it's not that clear over there. But you can kind of make out the outline of the mountains of Shur, which is a wall. And when you're in Saudi Arabia, we'll talk about the name Shur, because it says after they crossed the Red Sea, they went 3 days into Shur, and then they found Mara where they had the bitter waters. And so hopefully that trip I'll be there with you. If not, my friend who lives over there will tell you all about it.